We are joined by Robert Budway, president of the Can Manufacturers Institute in Washington, D.C. Robert, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here on PMA Perspective.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Robert, can you tell the viewers a little bit about your association, who you represent, and the work that they do?
We're a Washington, D.C. based association, and our members are the can makers, U.S. domestic can makers across the country.
Well, Robert, the topic of interest today is tariffs. And we here at PMA have seen some member companies benefit from some of the tariffs, but we've also have concerns that our partners in trade, such as our allies in Canada, are being treated unfairly, and that there is often disparity in the enforcement of these tariffs. What are your initial thoughts on the tariffs in general?
The tariffs have been really tough in our industry, and certainly they've been tough in our allies, Canada being one of them, of course. We know that primary aluminum is imported from Canada. We know that steel tinplate is imported from Canada. We use both those materials to make aluminum beverage cans and steel food cans and aerosol cans. So we know that the tariffs have hurt us as well as our allies.
Well, can you explain with some examples, and you did a little bit, but what is subject to a tariff and what is not? And how is that impacting American manufacturers of cans?
So under the 232 tariffs, finished goods are not subject to tariffs, but the raw materials are. So in our case in particular, the cans themselves are not subject to tariffs from Canada, but the aluminum used to make can sheet is subject to tariff, and the tinplate, which is used to make food cans and aerosol cans and paint cans, is subject to those tariffs.
So if a Canadian company that also made cans brought those cans into the United States, those would not be subject to tariff, but the raw materials coming to an American manufacturer are?
I believe that's the case. Now, we understand that Canada has applied retaliatory tariffs of cans exported from the U.S. to Canada, but we do not believe that the U.S. has applied retaliatory tariffs on cans coming in from Canada. It's just the raw materials.
So are the raw materials such as specialty tinplate that your members use, is any of that produced in the United States? And if it is it enough to meet the demands of your members?
Good question. So 58% of all of our tinplate needs are produced domestically. 42%, of course, that are imported from other countries. So Canada being a key country that we rely on for our 42% of imports.
Is there a chance that any of the tariffs that are going on could impact recycling efforts?
We think that recycling actually is helped by the tariffs. Absurdly enough, as we know that used beverage cans of aluminum are being imported from Mexico and Canada to the U.S. as the primary aluminum price has risen. And we think as well that steel cans are also being imported to the U.S. as U.S. mills are using more recycled materials to make tinplate.
So how have the tariffs affected the competitiveness of U.S. made canned products?
Good question. We know that U.S. canned products have gone up in price, and we hear from some of our customers that canned products from other countries, particularly China, are cheaper than U.S. canned meat products. Mm-hmm. Conversely, we also know that U.S. food can makers have lost business in Europe and other places because the tariffs have created a higher price point, and that canned food from China or Thailand has become cheaper in Europe or other countries.
Well, do you have specific examples regarding the disparity of the enforcement of the tariffs?
For one specific example that really is rubbing our industry the wrong way, if you will, is a Japanese company set up a plant in Chicago, and they are importing Japanese steel tariff-free, and that tariff-free steel was granted an exclusion by the Commerce Department. Mm-hmm. They are competing against U.S. can makers, and particularly U.S. can makers in Pennsylvania, who are using tinplate steel from foreign countries and having to pay that 25% tariff. So those U.S. can makers are now at a disadvantage against a Japanese company using Japanese steel. So the absurdity of that is really creating job losses. And we know one member in particular in Pennsylvania has laid off almost 90 workers because of this absurdity.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the footprint of your industry. At the very beginning, we understand that you represent those that manufacture these cans for food products and other products. But what's the size of the footprint? I don't think maybe a viewer has the recognition of just how large this industry is in the United States.
The can industry is probably one of the oldest manufacturing industries in the U.S. Our members make about 120 billion cans every year. 92 billion are aluminum beverage cans. About 25 billion are for food cans for human consumption, and the rest are aerosol and paint cans and decorative tins. We're in 35 states, have about 20,000 employees. Our revenue is about 14 billion a year in the United States, and globally our members are present as well, and they have operations around the world. So it's an industry which is ubiquitous, but not as apparent unless you look for them. So.
And you might not have the specific numbers, but what about the history of your industry in Pennsylvania?
I know we have 15 plants in Pennsylvania, about 1,200 workers. One of our largest members is Crown Holdings, located in Yardley, Pennsylvania, and they're an important part of us. And Crown has a very storied history in Pennsylvania, going back for decades, providing containers and other packaging to Pennsylvanians and all Americans across the country.
Well, as this issue progresses, the United States is working with Canada and Mexico on the USMCA. What kind of things will you be paying attention to as the details of this deal progress?
Well, we know that Congress, in particular Senator Grassley and others in the House, have become really vocal about having the 232 tariffs repealed before committing to hearing USMCA. So I'm waiting for the administration to commit to that condition from the Congress. And I think that would be really helpful for our Canada and Mexico, and for us as trading partners going forward, if we have that commitment to release our allies from the tariffs.
Well, Robert, thank you for lending your expertise and being so generous with your time. Where can the viewers go to learn more about you, your association, and the work that your members are doing?
Our website is cancentral.com, and you'll find a great amount of history and information about the industry, especially on recycling and sustainability.
Well, Robert Budway, president of the Can Manufacturers Institute in Washington, D.C., thank you for joining us on PMA Perspective.
Thanks so much.
David, back to you.